Aquarius, pause. If people around you have been acting strange, lately questioning your choices, watching you more closely, talking more than usual, this message is not random. Pause. There's a reason you're being misunderstood right now, and no, it's not because you're wrong. It's because you're quietly stepping into a version of yourself that no longer needs permission. Pause. So if you felt the urge to explain, to defend, to justify your silence, don't. Tonight isn't about convincing anyone. It's about listening to the part of you that already knows why this chapter can't continue the same way. Blackheart, if this feels familiar, leave a quiet "I'm listening" in the comments. Pause, lower voice. Because what comes next will explain why your freedom is triggering others and why staying silent is the most powerful choice you can make right now. Aquarius, stay right here with me for a moment. Let the noise soften. Not disappear, just soften enough for you to breathe again. There's something gentle happening beneath the surface of your life right now. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't demand attention. It feels more like a quiet knowing that arrives when you're alone late at night or early in the morning, when the world hasn't started pulling at you yet. You may not have words for it, but you've felt it. It's that subtle shift where certain conversations suddenly feel heavier, where familiar places don't hold you the way they used to, where being around some people requires more energy than it gives back. And you wonder quietly, when did this start to feel different? Here's the part no one says out loud. Growth doesn't always feel expansive at first. Sometimes it feels like loneliness. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like you're standing between two versions of yourself, not fully belonging to either one yet. And that in-between space, that's where you are now. As an Aquarius, you've always lived a little ahead of your time. You sense shifts before others can name them. You feel futures forming long before they become visible. But that also means you often outgrow situations quietly, while everyone else still thinks everything is the same. Have you noticed that lately? How you've been smiling less during conversations that used to excite you. How you pause before sharing good news. How you've started protecting your inner world without fully realizing it. That's not distance. That's discernment. There's a wisdom emerging in you, not the kind that needs to be proven, but the kind that simply knows when something has run its course. You're learning that not every ending requires an explanation. Not every decision needs approval. Not every silence is a weakness. And maybe that's what feels unsettling. Because you've been the one who understands others, the one who explains, the one who bridges gaps. So what happens when you choose not to? Here's a question to sit with, gently. When you imagine continuing exactly as you were, does your body feel open or tired? Pay attention to that answer. It's more honest than words. There's a deeper layer opening now. One that asks you to trust your internal compass more than external reactions. One that reminds you that alignment often looks like disruption from the outside. And one that teaches you that peace doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it arrives quietly, after you stop negotiating with what no longer fits. You're not losing people. You're losing roles you were never meant to carry forever. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. And clarity can feel unfamiliar when you're used to accommodating. If something inside you is whispering, stay present, something important is unfolding, listen to that. Because this moment isn't about fixing anything. It's about recognizing that you're standing at the edge of a truer life, one that asks for honesty before harmony and self-respect before understanding. And as we continue, we'll explore why this shift is happening now, why it feels so emotionally charged, and how to move forward without abandoning the part of you that still cares deeply. Just stay here. You're exactly where you need to be, Aquarius. I want you to imagine this moment the way it actually feels. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavy in a quiet way. It's the kind of pressure that doesn't announce itself as stress. It shows up as tightness in your chest when someone asks a simple question. As a pause before you answer, even when you know the truth. As that subtle feeling that whatever you say next will be misunderstood anyway. You've been carrying expectations that were never written down, yet somehow you're expected to honor them. Unspoken rules, invisible agreements, people reacting not to what you did, but to what your choice represents to them. And the strange part is no one is yelling. No one is forcing your hand. They're just watching, waiting, reacting emotionally to a direction you decided on long before they noticed the shift. You may have felt this as a low hum in the background of your life, a sense that you're being observed more closely now, that your independence has become a topic, that your calm has made others restless. They tell you they are worried. They say they just want to understand. But beneath those words is something far more human and far more fragile. They are afraid of losing their place in your world. Not you, not your love, not your safety, their access. Because when an Aquarius changes internally, the external world feels it before it understands it. Your energy pulls back slightly. Your availability shifts. Your attention becomes intentional instead of automatic. And that can feel threatening to people who were used to you being open by default. Here's something few people talk about. Pressure doesn't always come from conflict. Sometimes it comes from attachment, from people holding on to the version of you that made them comfortable. And you feel it because you are deeply perceptive. You notice tone before words. You feel emotional weather before the storm arrives. You sense when someone's concern is mixed with fear, even if they would never admit it to themselves. Let me ask you something gently. When someone questions your choice, do you feel supported or subtly pulled backward? That distinction matters more than you realize. You are not imagining this tension, and you are not responsible for easing it. There is a difference between care and control, between love and entitlement, between connection and access. The pressure you feel is the natural response to growth that creates distance without rejection. You are not pushing anyone away, you are simply standing more firmly in yourself, and that shift asks others to adjust. Some will not. What's important is this. You are allowed to make choices that calm your nervous system, even if they unsettle someone else's expectations. You are allowed to move quietly. You are allowed to protect what feels sacred now. There is nothing cold about this phase. It is precise. It is conscious. It is the kind of maturity that doesn't need applause. If the pressure has been building lately, see it as a sign that something in you has stabilized. And when one person becomes steady, everything around them must respond. Stay with me. Because once you understand where this pressure comes from, you'll stop carrying what was never yours to hold and begin moving forward with a lighter, clearer heart. Aquarius, stay with me for a moment. Let the room soften. Let the noise thin out. What you are feeling right now is not confusion. It is recognition. A quiet knowing that something inside you has shifted long before anyone noticed. You did not wake up one day as a different person. This has been happening slowly, in silence, in late nights when no one was watching, in choices you made without needing applause. And that is exactly why it unsettles them. People around you keep reaching for an older version of you, not because it was better, but because it was familiar, predictable, easier to place inside a box they already understood. When you expand, Aquarius, the room does not grow with you. It stays the same size, and suddenly your presence becomes a mirror. It reflects what others have avoided becoming. That discomfort is not your responsibility, but they try to make it feel like it is. They bring up memories you have already healed from. They repeat stories that no longer fit your voice. They laugh about who you used to be, hoping nostalgia will anchor you back. Not out of cruelty, out of fear. Because when one person evolves, it quietly asks a question of everyone else. What have you been avoiding inside yourself? And some people are not ready to answer that. Aquarius, this is where your gift often feels heavy. You were never meant to stay small for the comfort of others. You were designed to move ahead of time, to sense what is coming before it arrives. But progress can feel lonely when those you love are still standing at the doorway you already walked through. Take a breath here. Notice your chest. That tightness is not doubt, it is restraint. You have been holding back your truth so others do not feel left behind. But here is the part no one tells you. When you dim yourself, no one actually feels safer. They only feel less challenged. And that helps no one. There is a quiet dignity in allowing people to feel uncomfortable around your growth. It gives them permission to confront their own edges when they are ready. You do not need to argue. You do not need to explain. You do not need to prove that you have changed. Time will speak for you. Your peace will speak for you. And those meant to walk beside you will recognize the frequency immediately. Let me ask you something gently. Who benefits when you stay the same? And who are you betraying when you do? Sit with that. No rush. Because what comes next is not about separation. It is about alignment. About understanding why certain doors are growing quiet, and why others you never noticed before are beginning to glow softly in the distance. Something is rearranging itself around you now, not to take anything away, but to make space. And if you listen closely, you can already feel it preparing to reveal more. Aquarius, there is a subtle shift in the air now. You can feel it before anything actually happens. A pause in the rhythm of your days. A quiet moment where time seems to lean in a little closer. And then it arrives. Not loudly. Not dramatically, just a name crossing your mind out of nowhere. A message, a missed call. A coincidence that does not feel random at all. It carries familiarity. The weight of shared memories. The comfort of something once known by heart. For a brief second, your chest softens. Not because you want to go back, but because part of you remembers how hard you once tried. This is where many people misunderstand you, Aquarius. They think nostalgia means weakness. They think reflection means regret. But what you are actually doing is something far more mature. You are observing without abandoning yourself. You do not deny the past. You honor it, because it shaped your intelligence, your emotional depth, your ability to love without losing your center. Still honoring does not mean reopening the door. Some energies return not to stay but to test, to see if you still answer from the same place, to check whether your boundaries are real or only temporary ideas. And this is the moment where your evolution becomes visible. You notice how your body responds now. The excitement is quieter. The urgency is gone. There is space between the stimulus and your response. That space is wisdom. What once pulled you in emotionally now asks for permission. What once confused you now feels familiar, but distant. Like a song you loved years ago, but no longer need on repeat. Aquarius, this is not about judging what returns. It is about choosing what continues. Some chapters end because they taught you everything they could. If they reopen, they would not add depth. They would only recycle emotion. And you are not here to loop. You are here to progress. Take a breath right here. Notice how calm your nervous system actually is. That is your answer. You are no longer moved by potential alone. You are listening for alignment, for consistency, for truth that does not require you to shrink or negotiate your future. This is growth most people never reach, because it requires letting go without bitterness and remembering without attachment. Let me ask you something softly. If this energy had never left, would you have become who you are now? Sit with that question. There is no rush to reply. What is meant for you does not circle back out of confusion. It moves forward with clarity, with intention, with respect for who you have become. And what no longer fits will always try one last time, not to reclaim you, but to confirm that you are no longer available to the old version of the story. Something deeper is forming beneath the surface now, quieter than excitement, stronger than desire. And as you stay present with it, you may begin to sense that this unexpected moment was never a distraction. It was a mirror. And what it reveals next will feel even more undeniable. Aquarius, after everything you've carried, there comes a moment when the noise fades on its own. Not because life becomes easier, but because your inner world grows quieter. You start to notice something you never had words for before. A tiredness that sleep never fixed. A heaviness that did not come from work or age or responsibility. It came from giving without being seen. You were the steady one, the listener, the one who adjusted the tone, softened the edges, held space when others fell apart. You did it naturally, without keeping score, without announcing your effort. And for a long time, you told yourself this was love, this was loyalty, this was maturity. But one evening, maybe alone in your car or staring at the ceiling after midnight, you felt it clearly. There was nothing left to pour. Not dramatic, not explosive, just empty. This is the kind of exhaustion people rarely talk about, because it does not look like weakness. It looks like strength that has been overused. You did not collapse. You did not beg for understanding. You simply became quieter, and that silence was misunderstood. Some thought you were distant. Some thought you were cold. But the truth is you were conserving what little energy remained. This is where your self-respect quietly stepped in. Not as anger, not as punishment, but as protection. You realized that asking for more from people who could not give would only deepen the ache. So you chose a different form of care. You stepped back. That decision took courage most people never recognize. Because it meant disappointing expectations you once fulfilled with ease. It meant letting others sit with discomfort you had always absorbed for them. And here is the cosmic truth many never learn. When an Aquarius stops overgiving, it is not because they stopped caring. It is because they finally learned how to care for themselves. There is grief in that lesson. A quiet kind. Grief for the version of you who believed love meant endurance, who believed understanding required self-erasure. But there is also relief. A deep exhale in your chest, a sense of returning to your own orbit. You are not withdrawing from life. You are recalibrating. Your nervous system is learning what safety feels like again. Your heart is learning that rest is not abandonment. And your spirit is remembering that balance is not selfish. Let me ask you something gently. If you continue giving at the same cost, what part of you would slowly disappear? You already know the answer. Your body has been whispering it for years. This phase you are in now is sacred, because it teaches discernment. Not everyone deserves the depth you offer. Not every relationship earns access to your emotional labor. And the ones who truly see you will not need you to exhaust yourself to prove your worth. As you sit with this understanding, you may feel both lighter and more alone. That is normal. Growth often creates space before it creates connection. But something is forming in that space. A steadier version of you. One who gives from overflow, not depletion. one who chooses presence without sacrifice. And as this inner shift settles, you may begin to sense a new boundary shaping itself. Not hard, not defensive, just clear. What comes next will ask something different of you. Not how much you can give, but how well you can receive. Stay here with me a little longer. There is more unfolding beneath the surface. Aquarius, as you settle into this quieter version of yourself, something shifts in the air around you. It is subtle at first, almost easy to miss. Conversations change tone when you are not in the room. Pauses linger a little longer after your name is mentioned. You feel it before you hear it. When you stop explaining, people begin to fill the silence for you. They rearrange your story in ways that make sense to them. They soften it, or sharpen it, whatever helps them sleep at night. Your calm becomes suspicious. Your distance gets misread. Your boundaries are translated into words you never used. And for a moment, there may be a familiar urge, that old reflex to correct the narrative, to clarify intentions, to prove that you are still kind, still reasonable, still the version of you they remember. But something in you knows better now. You have learned that peace is fragile, and that constantly defending it can break it. Gossip does not come from clarity, it comes from discomfort. From people who sense they no longer have access to the same version of you. From those who relied on your openness to feel secure in their place beside you. When control slips away, words rush in to replace it. They speak because they are unsettled, because your silence forces them to sit with their own emotions. And not everyone knows how to do that. This is one of the hardest lessons for an Aquarius heart. Understanding that being misunderstood is sometimes the cost of being aligned. You are not being punished. You are being tested. Tested on whether you will abandon yourself to rescue your image. Tested on whether you will trade truth for temporary approval. And here is where your maturity shows. Not in confrontation, but in restraint. You let people talk. Not because they are right, but because you no longer need to correct them to feel whole. That choice carries a quiet power. The kind that does not announce itself. The kind that only reveals its strength over time. You may notice how some connections fade faster now. How certain invitations stop coming. How some people grow colder without explanation. Let that happen. What falls away in this season was only held together by your constant effort. This is not loss. This is alignment. And yes, there will be moments when the noise gets loud. When you wonder if staying silent makes you complicit. If holding your ground makes you cruel. So ask yourself gently, am I protecting my peace? Or am I still trying to be understood by people who are not listening? There is a difference. Your energy is no longer available for every misunderstanding. Your heart is no longer open to every interpretation. And that is not arrogance. That is wisdom earned through experience. Over time, the gossip loses momentum because it feeds on reaction, and you have stopped providing fuel. What remains are the relationships that do not require you to explain your humanity. The spaces where your silence feels safe. The connections that respect your no. You are not isolating yourself. You are filtering. And as this filtering continues, you may sense a deeper calm settling in. A steadiness that does not depend on validation. A clarity that feels earned, not forced. Something new is taking shape beneath this quiet resilience. A direction that does not need defending. A life that speaks for itself. Stay present. There is still more being revealed. Aquarius, after all the noise settles, there is a pause that feels different this time. Not empty. But open. It is the kind of quiet that carries possibility. You may not have named it yet, but something inside you is leaning forward. Not rushing. Just attentive. Like you are finally listening to a frequency that has been calling you for a while. This new direction does not arrive with fireworks. It comes softly, through curiosity instead of urgency, through a sense of alignment rather than escape. You notice it in small moments. The way your body relaxes when you imagine a different rhythm of life. The way your chest feels lighter when you think about creating again, or loving again, or simply living without constant tension. This is important, because impulsive change feels sharp. Aligned change feels calm. You are not trying to prove anything anymore. Not to the world. Not to your past. Not even to yourself. What opens now respects who you have become. It does not ask you to shrink or perform. It does not demand explanations. It waits. For some Aquarius souls, this shows up as a connection that feels unexpectedly safe. Not intense. Not dramatic. Just honest. A presence that does not drain you. For others, it appears as a creative pull you thought you had outgrown. A project. An idea. A voice inside that says this still matters. And for many, it is something quieter still. A lifestyle shift. A boundary honored. A morning where you breathe deeply and realize you are no longer bracing yourself for the day. This path meets you where you are, not where people remember you, not where expectations placed you years ago. It understands timing, and timing is sacred to an Aquarius heart. You have lived long enough to know that freedom without maturity feels hollow, and responsibility without freedom feels suffocating. What calls you now holds both. This is not rebellion. This is refinement. You are choosing with intention. You are moving with awareness. You are allowing life to respond to who you are now, not who you were conditioned to be. There may still be moments of doubt. That is natural, especially when the path ahead feels unfamiliar. So ask yourself this gently. Does this direction expand me, or does it simply distract me? Your body knows the answer before your mind does. Notice how peace feels in your nervous system. Notice how excitement no longer comes with anxiety. Notice how you are not abandoning anything that matters. You are arriving. This is the evolution of Aquarius energy at its most powerful. Vision guided by wisdom. Independence anchored in self-trust. You are not chasing freedom anymore. You are living it responsibly. And as you step closer to this new alignment, something remarkable happens. Life stops pushing. It starts cooperating. Doors open without force. People meet you with respect instead of resistance. Opportunities feel mutual rather than draining. This does not mean everything becomes easy. It means it becomes honest. Stay present with this unfolding. Do not rush it. Do not explain it away. There is still one final truth waiting beneath all of this, one that ties everything together. And when you hear it, you will understand why every step before now was necessary. Stay with me. Aquarius, there is a stillness now that feels earned. Not the kind that comes from waiting. The kind that comes from knowing. You can feel it in your body. That quiet recognition that something irreversible has already happened inside you. You are no longer the person who bends just to keep the peace. And you are no longer afraid of what that might cost. This is where the final truth lives. Not as a sharp revelation, but as a gentle certainty settling into your bones. Yes, someone will feel the shift. Someone will notice that they can no longer reach you the same way, and that may hurt them. But their pain is not your wrongdoing. Freedom always creates contrast, especially for those who were comfortable when you stayed small, when you absorbed the weight, when you explained yourself until you were tired. Growth disrupts those arrangements, and this is the part few people talk about. When you evolve, you do not just gain new things, you release old roles, old agreements, old versions of yourself that were built to survive, not to thrive. Letting go can feel like loss at first, because familiarity feels like safety, even when it drains you. But what you are releasing now is not aligned with who you are becoming. You are not abandoning love. You are redefining it. You are not rejecting connection. You are choosing honesty over obligation. That distinction matters. So when the urge to explain returns, pause. When the instinct to defend rises, breathe. Ask yourself one simple question. Am I speaking to be understood, or am I speaking to be accepted? You already know which one costs you more. Listening to yourself is an act of courage, especially in a world that rewards noise and performance. But your intuition has grown clearer in the quiet. Your inner voice does not shout, it waits. And when you finally listen, you realize something profound. The life calling you forward cannot coexist with everything behind you. Some things must fall away. Some connections must loosen. Some identities must dissolve, not because they failed, but because they finished. This is evolution, not dramatic, not cruel, just honest. You are stepping into a phase where alignment matters more than approval, where peace matters more than being right, where your energy is treated as sacred. And this is why the path ahead feels lighter, even if it is uncertain, because you are carrying less that does not belong to you. If you feel a quiet ache alongside this clarity, that is human. Grief and growth often walk together. Let them. You do not need to rush this ending. You do not need to narrate it. You do not need to justify it. Your life will speak for itself. So stay with this silence. Let it teach you. Let it guide you. Because what you are becoming does not require permission. It requires presence. And as the music softens, as the world slows just a little, remember this. You are not losing anything essential. You are returning to yourself. And that has always been the point. Aquarius, before you go anywhere else tonight, let this moment land. Not as advice, not as prediction, but as recognition. If something inside you softened while listening, if your chest felt a little warmer, or your breath slowed without you trying, that was not coincidence. That was resonance. You did not arrive here by accident. This message found you because you were ready to hear it. Ready to stop negotiating with your truth. Ready to trust the quiet, knowing you have carried for a long time. There is a strength in you that does not need to announce itself. A wisdom that grows in stillness. A courage that looks like calm. And tonight, that part of you was listening. If this story felt like it was spoken just for you, leave a comment. Not to explain. Just to say I'm here. Let other Aquarians find you in that space. You are not alone on this path. If this voice feels safe, if this energy feels grounding, subscribe and stay close. There is more unfolding. The journey does not end here. Something new is already forming beneath the surface. Another message, another moment of clarity waiting for you. Until then, carry this with you. You are allowed to choose peace without permission. You are allowed to grow without apology. You are allowed to trust yourself even when the world does not understand yet. May your path feel lighter. May your heart feel steady. May your freedom feel earned and gentle. And remember, the next message is already on its way. Until we meet again, Aquarius, stay true, stay open, and keep listening to yourself.